Welcome. Today we'll show how quickly we can build a fully functional one-page website using the Joomla CMS. In just a few minutes, we'll take the client's ready-made text and turn it into a clean, well-structured, and easily editable page. Last time we generated websites using AI, but today we're working with a real-world scenario where all content comes directly from the client. This allows us to focus fully on implementation and quality. And it brings us to an important question. Why choose a CMS instead of static HTML, even if AI can generate HTML instantly? Static HTML may be fast to generate, even with AI, but it becomes a problem the moment the client wants changes or when ongoing site maintenance is needed. Updating or expanding the site requires manual coding, even for small adjustments. Making changes to a static website, such as updating content or adding multiple languages, is difficult and time-consuming. Bigger changes, like turning a one-page site into a multi-page site or adding advanced features such as e-commerce, are practically impossible. Clients often rethink their requirements and request major changes. With static HTML, these updates are unmanageable. With a CMS designed for this from the start, making such changes is simple and straightforward. There are really many reasons to use a CMS and prioritize it over generating a static HTML page. If you are interested in learning more, you can find links related to this topic below the video. For now, we are going to focus on creating our one-page website using Joomla. Since we are building a one-page website, the content will not be built exclusively with articles, as is customary in a CMS, but rather using modules. For this purpose, we are going to install the Foca Particles module, which is designed specifically for tasks like this, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's first take a quick look at the final design and how our finished page is going to look. This single-page presentation will be divided into clear, easily navigated sections. We start at the top. You'll see a large, engaging image banner. Right below it, we get to the content. The About Us section provides an introduction, and the Why Choose Us section showcases the key advantages. Next, we won't forget the people behind the project. The page will feature the entire team, and of course, we'll show testimonials and references from clients. To finish, there is a Join Us section and a Contact section to facilitate easy communication. And now for the technical features. The page will be in light mode, but with a single click, we can switch it to dark mode. The most important thing is that the design is responsive. It will look perfect on mobile, tablet, and desktop. Now let's examine the in-depth details of building this page. The following guide is quite lengthy, so we will be speeding up some parts of the video. Of course, if you find that it is still too long and you are watching this video on YouTube, you can always use the faster playback speed setting yourself. We'll start by installing the basic Joomla CMS. Joomla comes with a default template, but for our example, we will install the Foca Spectrum template. This template is similar to the default Joomla template. It doesn't include an overly bloated framework, and all parameters are configured using standard Joomla settings. However, unlike the basic Joomla template, it offers the ability to add new rows, or rather, containers, and new columns within these containers. Furthermore, the design can be defined using Bootstrap classes, which are universally known and will allow us to create pages that display correctly and responsively on all devices. The installation package for this template also includes the Foca Particles module, which will help us create content using modules. Of course, we could use Joomla's standard custom HTML module and simply insert pre-prepared HTML, but for simplicity, we will use the Foca Particles module. Here, we only need to input the data, and the module handles the design output for us. We will also install the Foca Maps component along with the Foca Maps plugin to easily insert a map onto the page.
That concludes our installation work. Now, we will open the instruction files from our client, and then we can begin. We should also point out that in this video, we are showing the complete process of building the page. In practice, this process can be much faster by installing demo data and simply modifying it to fit our needs. However, for our purposes now, we will proceed step by step. So we installed the template and the necessary extensions, and we can see that not much has changed on our page. We will start by repositioning the main menu and hiding the unnecessary modules. Before we start creating content using modules, we will create one main article. We will link this article to the Home menu item. and we will pre-create all the menu links with their anchors now. Now we will create 6 menu links, each of which will lead to an anchor. The setup is the same for all 6 links, so we will speed up this part of the video slightly. With the basic setup complete, we can dive into the first module. This will be a banner where we will insert a background image and some introductory text. We'll add a little animation and save it. However, the requirement was for the introductory banner to display under our menu. To achieve this, we will use the classes within the Focus Spectrum template. First, we define a class that ensures the banner shifts upward. Then, we define a class to handle the color scheme. Furthermore, we must instruct all elements that the banner will display beneath to adjust their color scheme as needed. And with that, our banner is finished.
Now we'll start adding more containers to our website. Focus Spectrum has dedicated module positions, top positions which are above the content, and then bottom positions which are below the content. Into the first position below the banners, that is the top position, we will add a new module. This module will display the data for our About Us menu link, a title, a description, an image, and a button. To enable navigation to this specific section, we need to set an anchor for the container within the template. We could set the anchor anywhere we want, for example, directly in the module itself, but for simplicity, we will be setting the anchors within the template. In the top B position, we will set up a module that will be part of the About Us section. It will contain a series of short phrases with animation. Once again, we will use the Foca particle module and configure the individual parts, which will be 3 in total: a title, an icon, and a short description. The animation here is purely to make the individual parts more engaging. Of course, if animation doesn't suit someone's preferences, they don't have to set it up. Let's move on to the next module. Now a module for the YUS section. Again, simple data, significant numbers along with some animation and a short description. In the template, we will set the anchor for this section. Next up is the Join Us section. This section will consist of 2 modules, one powerful slogan and a second with information along with a link to the contact section. Again, we will enter the data into the module and assign an anchor to the first container, which will link it to the menu item. We would also like to introduce our team. We have photos and names of our team members ready, along with a description of their core skills. We will link everything to the Our Team menu item. Of course, we cannot forget the references section. For this demonstration, we will select 2 references and each will have its own module. We will outline the project names, their descriptions, and a brief summary of the work involved in creating these projects. We will then link the first container to the menu item. The last of the bottom modules will be the contact section. Here, on one side, we will insert a map created using the Foca Maps component, and on the other, we will list the address and our contact details. We will link everything to the contact menu item.
Now we only have one last module remaining, and that is the footer. Here, for demonstration, we will include brief information. Of course, thanks to Joomla modules, we could insert anything here: a newsletter sign-up, some menus, legal information, and so on. Our work on the one-page website is now finished. Now we will check that the page displays correctly on various screens, and then we can contact our client to demonstrate our work to them. For an added bonus, we want to show you one more great feature of Joomla templates. If we don't like a color used in the template, nothing is easier than using user.css, which overrides the template styles. This is not a core file modification, so there is no data loss when updating Joomla or the template. This file remains untouched during updates. For example, let's change the basic blue color to orange. This feature, combined with the ability to add any Bootstrap class to our containers, rows, and columns, allows us to change anything about the page design without having to modify Joomla's core files. That is one of the biggest advantages of the Joomla CMS.
Thank you for watching until the very end. Yes, the video was longer, but we must realize that in these few minutes, we were able to create an entire website with all the necessary features. And because this site was built within a content management system, there is no future request from the client regarding this page that we would be unable to solve. All of this is possible thanks to the Joomla CMS.